This is an American full packer brisket, and I am going to compare it to a European version of a brisket. Ooh, that's going to be interesting.
A big thanks to borniak smokers for sponsoring this video.
That is a brisket. Well, that's actually two briskets. Look at these beauties. Arrgh. What we're going to do is going to take these beautiful brisket and get them ready for our comparison. The American full packer brisket smoked Texas style versus the European version of the brisket. And in the Netherlands we call that klapstuk met hutspot. I know, that's kind of hard to pronounce.
Klapstuk met hutspot.
I'm going to start with trimming the American brisket. This is now nice and clean, and now it's time to work on our Euro brisket. And for the Euro brisket, we're just going to cut it up. Now I know a lot of people are crying right now, but that's the way we do it. And I can't tell you any other. Klapstuk is just two pieces of meat, the breast piece, cut up. In Europe, we don't cook briskets the whole thing as they are. Typically this will be a weekday meal. So let's say we have a family of 12, 100 grams per person will be enough, then 1.2 kilograms of this will be sufficient. So let's take a typical klapstuk out of this. Now this would be a typical klapstuk. A lean cut of beef, very tough, but with loads of fat to make up for it. As you can see, there is a big difference between the two briskets. Portion wise, it's a little bit different. Now, this is a whole technical cut, and this is part of a technical cut. But the reason that I need to cut it up that way is because of the style of cooking. But before we start cooking, of course, we need to season our briskets. Starting with the American brisket, the Texas style brisket, and it's not that different from the European style. First I'm going to sprinkle some fine sea salt on the brisket, and then I'm going to add ground black pepper. Now, the amount of salt and pepper that you use depends on how thick your brisket is. And the funny thing is, the same thing goes for our European style brisket. I'm also going to season it with some fine sea salt and some coarse ground black pepper. Because this is not the only way they do it in Texas, they do this all over Europe. And now you have to why the Europeans love the Texas style of brisket so much. It reminds them of home. To cook the American brisket, I need to smoke it. That's the traditional way of cooking the brisket. So therefore I'm going to use the borniak smoker. This is an absolute perfect smoker if you want to get it right. I'm going to place my brisket in. Switch it on. Set the temp to 110 degrees Celsius. Turn on the smoker. Stick in a thermometer to keep an eye on the temperature. Smoke for 4 hours. Spray on a little bit of brisket water every hour to keep the brisket nice and moist. Once it looks good, wrap the brisket up and let it continue to cook until it becomes tender. The brisket is done. The total cooking process is first getting that brisket up to a temperature of 92 degrees Celsius core temperature while smoking it. And then the second part of it is resting it. Now I've got a method for you if you've never done this before, the 4-2-10 method, which makes this very, very easy. But if you're more an experienced person, you can go with more details and more fine-tuning yourself and make it even better, which in this case we did. And after extreme long resting period, oh, it smells absolutely freaking fantastic. Gotta love the American brisket. Time to slice into this beauty and take a look on the inside. Oh yo, just look at it. That is one freaking juicy brisket. Fat rendered down perfect. So we got the nice bark, we got the juices. And that's how you make an American brisket. Now it's time we start working on the European version. The Euro style brisket is typically cooked in a Dutch oven. Melt some beef tallow, which is important, use real fat, and then you're going to fry your brisket. Just for the sole purpose of getting a beautiful Maillard effect on the outside. A nice brown crust that's going to bring you a lot of flavors. Once you got a beautiful Maillard effect on your klapstuk, otherwise known as the Euro brisket, you're going to remove the fat from the pan, put it back in, Add half a liter of beef broth, 250 milliliters of red wine. And don't use a cheap, horrible wine. You want a delicious wine. It will make the difference. Some people say no, I say yes. Use a good wine. Coarsely chop a carrot, quarter an onion, 4 cloves, 2 bay leaves. And then all you need to do is close the lid and let this slowly simmer. And when the Euro brisket is almost done, then it's time to make the final preparations on the dish. Because you can't have a Euro style brisket without the rest of the dish. And in the Netherlands, that is hutspot. I boiled 900 grams of potatoes until it was soft and crumbly. Then I'm going to mash them up. Add 50 grams of butter, 100 milliliters of milk. Run that through a potato sieve. And to the 900 grams of potato mash, we're going to add 600 grams of carrots and 300 grams of cooked onion. You want this to be a little chunkier. Once mashed, add it to the potatoes, add a pinch of salt, mix it up, and that's how you create one of the most classic mashed potato dishes of the Netherlands. Look at all that gravy surrounding that Euro brisket, and then the beef got a beautiful bark. It's absolutely freaking tender. You can shred it, which we're not going to do, but it's so super tender, it just falls apart on you. The fat rendered down nice. So I'm gonna cut off a chunk and plate this up. Just look at that. I'm a bit scared. I'm a bit scared, honestly, about the taste test and then giving a verdict. Because a lot is riding on this. American brisket versus Euro brisket. All right, let's go American brisket first. That's what everybody knows. There we go. Now, let's try the Euro brisket. But we got the beautiful crust just as well as we got it on the brisket. It doesn't have that smokiness that the brisket has, not that texture, but it's more tender. It's meant to be more like pulled beef. That is so good. The thing is that with the Euro version of the brisket, you get more flavor from the bay leaves. You get more flavor from the red wine. There's more added flavor to the dish compared to having the smoked brisket. Of course, there's smoke on it, there's a nice bark on it, but it hasn't got that extra flavor. Now, normally, if you're a purist, the American brisket would hands down win because it's just beef all over. But if you're more of a flavor profile that you're used to like this, then you would say hands down this wins. But is one better than the other? Can you really make a distinction? Because it's completely different techniques. It is a different end result with the same cut of beef. Do I really need to tell them which one I do prefer? Cheap, simple, but yet very tasty. Oh, one last thing about money. In the Netherlands, if you order klapstuk at the butcher, you pay almost next to nothing. So if we translate that to dollars, a brisket here in the Netherlands would cost you $190 at the moment, $170, something like that. It's not like your $50. So that's why we take klapstuk.